Chapter 5. Funny Masks. Just as the children and their mother were growing fearful that Mr. Hollister might have had an accident, they heard the horn of his truck beep in the driveway. "Daddy's here! Daddy's here!" Sue shouted. She and the others made a dash for their coats and hats and ran out the back door to meet him. How glad they were to find he was all right. And what a funny scene they saw lighted up by the big floodlight over the garage door. In the back of the truck was Santa Claus, seated in his sleigh, but the reindeer were not pulling it. Instead, they were piled all around him as if they'd dropped from the sky. One of the wooden deer was laying in the sleigh, and the two front feet of another were hanging over the truck's tailboard. Standing in the driveway beside the truck were Mr. Hollister and Indy Rhodes. "Hello," the Indian said. Then, with a laugh, he added, "We just arrived from the North Pole." "Oh, is that why you took so long?" Holly asked. "We thought you'd never get home," said Pam. "Did something happen?" "Yes, it did," Mr. Hollister replied. "Come into the house and I'll tell you about it." Sue took Indy's hand as they walked inside. "You tell us too," she said. Indy, shorter than Mr. Hollister, had broad, athletic-looking shoulders. He had a kind face and a fine smile. While he and the others took off their coats, Mrs. Hollister set a place at the table for him. He and Mr. Hollister began to eat and to tell what had delayed them so long. "We nearly lost the Santa Claus," Mr. Hollister said. "Herman Tash was the cause of it." Pete's eyes widened. "The man who runs the hardware store a block away from the trading post?" "The same one," Indy put in. "He wanted the Santa Claus, too. Claimed he'd bought it." Mr. Hollister explained that Mr. Tash had ordered a Santa Claus and reindeer the spring before, but in September he had sent Mr. Greer a letter canceling his order. "And then he changed his mind again?" Pam asked. "He must have," Mr. Hollister said, "because when we arrived with the truck, Mr. Tash was in front of the barn arguing with Mr. Greer. Mr. Tash insisted that our Santa Claus belonged to him." "But there was nothing he could do about it," Indy said. Finally, Mr. Tash stopped arguing and went off in his car, but he was very angry. Ricky heaved a great sigh. "I hope he'll leave our Santa alone. When are we going to put everything on top of the trading post, Dad?" "Tomorrow." "Will you wait till we're out of school so we can help you?" Holly asked. "Sure thing. You children come directly from school to the store. I'd like your help." Next morning, the Hollister children were up as early as usual, because all of them had jobs to do. The boys fed Domingo. Then, wanting to have some fun, they led him to the back porch, lifted him up, and poked his head into the kitchen. "Ee-aw!" the burro brayed. The three girls burst out laughing, and Pam gave him a lump of sugar. "Good morning to you," she said. Holly had just given Zip some breakfast, but he looked up from his dish on the floor to give several sharp barks. White Nose was waiting for her food and began to meow loudly. Once more, Domingo said, "Ee-aw!" What a din there was! "Gracious!" Mrs. Hollister exclaimed. "Take that burro back to the garage." Things quieted down again, and an hour later the children started for school. That morning, Holly's class was to study about Christmas customs in Switzerland. Miss Tucker read to the children from a picture book. "The day they have the most fun," she said, "is December 5th. That's when they celebrate St. Nicholas Day. He's their Santa Claus, and is called Sammy Claus. To welcome him, the children parade through the village streets," the teacher went on. "Sometimes the part of Sammy Claus is played by a little boy. He wears a crimson fur-trimmed robe, a red, jovial-looking mask, and a long white beard. He has many attendants and flowers. All the children wear funny masks." That must be fun, Holly said. And there is a special surprise for the girls, Miss Tucker added. Along with Sammy Klaus comes a beautiful maiden called Lucy. She hands out gifts to all the good little girls in the village. And not the boys? A lad back of Holly asked. I'm afraid not, Miss Tucker said. Now, we shall plan our part in the school pageant. We'll need a boy to play Sammy Klaus and a girl to play the part of Lucy. Oh, I want to be chosen, cried several children, including Holly. Miss Tucker smiled. We'll put all the girls' names in one hat and all the boys in another. 2 girls sitting near the cloakroom dashed into it for their hats. The pupils wrote their own names on little pieces of white paper. When all the slips were in the right hats, Miss Tucker pulled out a boy's name first. Ned Quinn, she said. He was a friend of Ricky's. The children clapped, and the blonde-haired boy, laughing, took a bow and said, Meet Sammy Klaus. And now, Miss Tucker said, the first name I pick out of the girl's hat will be Lucy. Everyone became quiet, and Holly's pulse was pounding with excitement. She would so love to be chosen for the part. Slowly, Miss Tucker pulled out a paper and unfolded it. Who is it? Who is it? Several girls shouted. Lucy is Holly Hollister, Miss Tucker announced. Oh, she'll make a wonderful Lucy, Donna Martin said as all the pupils cheered. What do we do next, Miss Tucker? Asked Donna. Let's make masks, the teacher said. Donna, who had brown eyes and hair and plump, rosy cheeks, slipped into the seat alongside Holly as Miss Tucker passed out colored paper and scissors. The teacher propped the picture book up on her desk so the children could see what the masks looked like. Soon the sound of snipping scissors filled the room. Oh, Donna, I have a real silly one, Holly giggled. How does it look on me? Donna laughed out loud. You look like a Halloween pumpkin with a crooked nose. How does mine look? Like a sad pussycat that's been crying, Holly answered, putting her hand across her mouth to keep from laughing. By this time, all the children had completed their masks. Miss Tucker showed them how to connect elastic bands to the sides so that the masks could be held securely about their heads. Now we'll have a parade, like the children in Switzerland, she said. The boys and girls adjusted their funny masks and started marching around the room. Holly's mask kept slipping down so she could not see where she was going. Bang! Holly hit her head hard on the edge of the door, which had just been opened by Principal Russell. She sat down kerplunk on the floor. Oh dear, Miss Tucker cried out, hurrying over. Mr. Russell was already helping Holly to her feet and saying how sorry he was. I saw stars, the little girl remarked. You poor child, the teacher said, taking off the mask and examining Holly's forehead. You're getting a lump on your head. Come, we'll put cold water on it. She led Holly to the drinking fountain in the hall and soaked her handkerchief. Holly held it to her forehead and soon felt much better. By the time the closing bell rang, she'd forgotten all about it. The 4 Hollisters met and hurried to their father's store. Indy said Santa, his sleigh, and the reindeer were waiting to be hoisted to the roof. Each piece would be lifted up separately, and the outfit put together later. All set with the ropes to hoist Santa and the other things up? Mr. Hollister asked Indy. Everything's ready, the Indian replied. He had fastened a stout board to the roof of the 1-story building. To the end of it was attached a pulley, and a rope dangled through this to the sidewalk. What can we do, Dad? Pete asked, as Indy climbed the ladder to the roof. Mr. Hollister said the children might follow Indy and help put Santa Claus, the sleigh, and reindeer into position. Ricky and Holly mounted the ladder first to the snow-covered roof. Then Pete and Pam followed. There was a wide ledge around the roof. However, Indy cautioned the children not to lean over too far. "We'll be careful," Pam promised. On the sidewalk, Mr. Hollister was busy tying one of the reindeer to the end of the rope. A crowd had already gathered to watch the proceedings. "Say, this is going to be nifty," a red-haired boy exclaimed. "A wonderful idea," said a man coming out of the store. "It really looks like Christmas now," a woman remarked. "Santa Claus has come to Shoreham." When the reindeer was tied securely, Mr. Hollister hoisted it to the roof. Indy leaned out and grabbed one of the reindeer's legs. The children helped him pull it over and stand it up. The operation was repeated until all the wooden animals were on the roof. By this time, the crowd below had grown so large that it extended across the street. "We want Santa Claus!" the red-haired boy shouted. "Send him up!" "Santa's last," Mr. Hollister replied, chuckling. He fastened the sleigh at both ends, then slowly pulled on the rope. Up, up it went. "I have it," Indy called down, as he and the children grabbed the sides of the sleigh and set it alongside the reindeer. Santa was next. Mr. Hollister tied a rope around the be-whiskered man's red coat, and the jolly figure followed the sleigh to the roof as the crowd cheered. When all the pieces were in place, Indy and Pete fastened them together with wire so that the wind could not blow them over. "That's a good job," the Indian told the children. "Thanks for your help." Pete was eager to see how everything looked from across the street. Quickly he climbed down, followed by the others. "It sure does look good, doesn't it?" he said to his father, pleased at the way Santa Claus had been rigged up. But Mr. Hollister was not paying attention. His eyes were searching the crowd in front of the store. "Where's Ricky?" he asked. "Didn't he come down with you children?" "I didn't notice," Pam said. She glanced about, but Ricky was nowhere in sight. "He must be on the roof, Dad," Pete suggested. He cupped his hands and called up, "Hey, Rick! Rick, come on down!" There was no reply. Pete quickly climbed the ladder and looked around the roof. Ricky was not there. When Pete came down again and reported this, Pam became frightened. "Dad," she said in alarm, "you don't think Ricky could have fallen off the building, do you?"